Nicola Peltz, The Battle of the Beckhams, Part 2. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. In Part 1, I brought to your attention the ongoing rift that has originated between Brooklyn Beckham, his wife Nicola Peltz Beckham, and the extended Beckham clan. This came to a head as a consequence of Brooklyn and Nicola's failure to attend David Beckham's 50th birthday celebrations. Instead, they sought to meet with him privately, but were met with a firm "No, you have to come to the main family celebration." There had been a failure to like one another's social media for some time, and since they didn't attend, they were absent from pictures of the Beckham family with attendant girlfriends that were shared on social media by David and Victoria Beckham. The fact that the son of David Beckham chose not to attend a milestone birthday celebration is something which could suggest that the individual is under the influence of a particular personality type. Or might it simply be that he'd rather go along with what his wife requires, or that he decided himself that he didn't want to attend? But there have been a number of missed events, a dozen or so, which shows a pattern of repeated behaviour and suggests that there might be a problematic individual at the heart of all of this. Accordingly, we're going to examine Nicola Peltz to ascertain what she is. For those of you who may not be fully familiar with who she is, Nicola Ann Peltz Beckham was born on January the 9th, 1995. She's 30 years old. She's described as an American actress and filmmaker. I have to admit, I'd never heard of her as an actress. I only knew about her as a consequence of her marriage to Brooklyn Beckham. Apparently, she's best known for her roles as Katara in the film The Last Airbender from 2010, Bradley Martin in the A&E drama series Bates Motel from 2013 to 2015, and Tessa Yeager in the film Transformers: Age of Extinction in 2014. I haven't seen any of those. Now, the fact that she's described as an actress raises immediately the likelihood of strong narcissistic traits. Doesn't mean that she's a narcissist, but in order to be an actor or actress, you invariably need to have some strong narcissistic traits because you need to be able to perform. You may be seen as vain. You have to have the narcissistic trait of showcasing. And this doesn't mean that the individual themselves would necessarily be narcissistic or even a narcissist, but they would have strong narcissistic traits. The acting world, as I've explained elsewhere, is one that does attract narcissists because it is an environment which caters particularly well to not only allowing the narcissist to get to the prime aims very effectively, but it's also tailor-made for narcissists as a consequence of their inherent chameleon-like nature. Narcissists, in broad terms, are actors and actresses because they show people different things about themselves and take on different aspects in order to manipulate people. And therefore, that inherent ability would prove particularly useful in a professional setting as an actor or actress. Therefore, the environment into which she's gone as a profession is one which could prove telling. She was born in Westchester County in New York as the daughter of Jewish-American billionaire businessman Nelson Peltz and model Claudia Hefner. She has one sister and 6 brothers. She also has 2 half-siblings from her father's previous marriages. Although her mother never converted to Judaism, her father is a devout Jew, and both of his sons had a bar mitzvah. She's the daughter of a billionaire. This could well generate a gilded environment for her, whereby she has never wanted for anything. That everything has been provided for her in terms of education, lifestyle, the place that she's lived, that she's been given access to opportunity as a consequence of her father's wealth that other people would not have. And that can be the backdrop for a lack of control environment. As you will know from my existing work, in order for somebody to be a narcissist, they must have the genetic predisposition towards narcissism allied with a lack of control environment. We'll look to see if there is any suggestion that a genetic predisposition could have reached Nicola Peltz. But what we have here is a clear potential lack of control environment. Not an abusive one per se, but one whereby the individual doesn't have much control over their lives as a consequence of the fact that they are brought up in a gilded environment wanting for nothing. This is an environment that commonly results in the creation of narcissists because of the rampant sense of entitlement and the fact that the child had no control of their own decision making because everything was handed on a plate to them. They didn't have to necessarily work for anything. Let's examine what the familial environment is like for Nicola Peltz to make a determination about that aspect of her life. Apparently, she shares a close bond with her parents. Her parents have been married for over 30 years, which suggests a sense of stability. During an interview back in February 2024, Nicola opened up about how much she was inspired by her parents' marriage, also, as well as that of her husband Brooklyn Beckham's parents, David and Victoria Beckham. Anyone who has been married for a long time, it's such a beautiful thing, she said. My parents have been together for maybe 40 years, and David and Victoria have been together since Brooklyn was a baby, which is like 25 years. My parents, their love inspires me every day. It sounds cheesy, but that's how I feel. Now, that does sound like a rather idealised view of love to talk about your parents, that they inspire me every day. And therefore, one might think that that shows something of itself. But she looks to two long-standing relationships and sees that that is inspirational to her. In other words, stability matters. Now, there are those of you who have been involved in long-standing relationships with narcissists. So just because a relationship has endured for decades doesn't mean that it's necessarily a healthy one. But, on the face of it, that stability is a factor which might militate away from the suggestion of her being a narcissist. Nicola also explained that she values her tight-knit relationship with her parents and that she often travels to their home in Florida to spend time with them and her siblings. Family is everything to me, and I mean that with my whole heart. I go to Florida any chance I can get, and we stay at my parents' house. It honestly makes me so happy to wake up and have my siblings around. It's really hard to get us all in the same place because there are so many of us. We're all together, it's so much fun. Well, that sounds again like a healthy family environment. She describes her parents as having been together for more than 40 years, and that they always make fun of each other. She says, "My dad is just so cute. When my mum leaves the room, he's always just like, she's so beautiful." They still act like young kids in love. Literally, they're always making out to the point where my brother's like, "I'm closing my eyes, stop making out." They're so in love. And being able to grow up with that is so beautiful. I would never settle for anything other than that. Now, the fact that the parents continue to make out in front of the children, even though they are adults, does tend to suggest an absence of boundary recognition. It's one thing to have an affectionate kiss or a cuddle from time to time, but to make out, as she's described, to the extent that one of her brothers says, "I'm going to close my eyes," does tend to suggest a performative nature of the behaviour between the parents, that rather than do it in private, they feel a need to show off in front of their children. And that of itself, of course, doesn't mean that either of the parents is necessarily a narcissist, but it is a narcissistic indicator. What about the siblings? Well, Nelson and Claudia are the parents of 8 children: Matthew, Will, Brad, Brittany, Diesel, Nicola, Zachary and Gregory. Nicola is the 3rd youngest. They have a range of careers from sports to interior design. Her older brother, Will, is a model and an actor. Matthew, her eldest brother, has a degree from Yale University and now works for his father's investment firm, Trian Fund Management, and is the non-executive vice chairman of Wendy's. Her two older brothers, Brad and Diesel, are in the tech industry. Brad was a professional ice hockey player for the Ottawa Senators until 2013. He later founded an automated scheduling platform for patients and doctors called Mimo in 2016. Diesel is the co-founder of location tracking app 20 and the health tech app Healthy Together. Her older sister Brittany attended New York University's Tisch School of the Arts and is now founder and creative director of the interior design studio Senna Lifestyle Studio. She also shares 4 children with her husband, Franz Ferdinand Buersted. Zachary and Gregory, the younger twin brothers, are ice hockey players who prefer to keep out of the spotlight. It doesn't appear that there are any familial feuds amongst the siblings, which suggests some stability. Interestingly, when it came to her own career, Peltz explained that she convinced her parents to let her act at a young age. She stated, "I grew up playing ice hockey, and my dad really wanted me to focus on playing ice hockey. He thought it was so cool. I was centre right and right wing. Then, when I was 11 years old, I asked my mum if I could try acting. It started because I loved my drama class. My parents were very against it at first. They didn't get it. We lived an hour away from Manhattan, and I convinced my mum to bring me to one manager. She was like, 'Listen, if they take you, great. If they don't, do not bring it up to me until you're 18 years old.' So I begged the woman to take me. I think she just felt so bad for me that she took me on as a client. My first audition I ended up booking, and I was in a play at the Manhattan Theatre Club called Black Bird. After scoring a role in Black Bird, Nicola told Grazia in another interview that her parents warmed up to the idea of her becoming an actress. I think my parents saw how much I really enjoyed it, how much I loved it, and how hard I worked at it, and that's all they really care about," she said. Now, they're really supportive. Accordingly, they resisted her pursuing a particular career, but she begged to do it. That shows a degree of single-mindedness on her part. Nevertheless, they haven't behaved in a way so as to kibosh that, and have demonstrated that they have been supportive. They've supported her at one of her premieres, for example, when she appeared in the production Lola. And therefore it would seem that her parents are supportive of her chosen profession and that she doesn't have any internal wranglings in relation to her family, at least so far. Now, her father is a billionaire, and he has done so through investment. He was originally a student at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. He dropped out of college and started working for his family's food distribution company. He couldn't figure out when he was going to use accounting and finance and economics, and he decided to drop out of college and a lecture at the University of Miami. He then co-founded an investment firm. He's been a director at H.J. Heinz, Mondelez, and he's been a non-executive chairman of Wendy's. He has served as a director of Madison Square Garden Sports Corp and Unilever. Therefore, he clearly knows something about business and has been very successful. Now, not all billionaires are narcissists, but the pursuit of wealth in that way shows a driven character where undoubtedly he will exhibit some narcissistic traits. And a dispute did arise ahead of Nicola's wedding to Brooklyn, where her father filed a lawsuit against two of the couple's wedding planners in December 2022. The planners, Nicole Bryan and Ariana Gilaba, were hired 6 weeks before the wedding and fired after 9 days on the job. A lawsuit ensued, and the result was it was settled, with the planner's employer making a donation in Nicola and Brooklyn's name to the Care Ukraine Crisis Fund. So it would appear that they ultimately, without any admission of liability, having settled it, the fact that they made a charitable donation were likely to be in the wrong. Now, as you know, litigation is something that's often engaged in by narcissists, but isn't solely the preserve of them, and it may well be that in this instance, Nelson Peltz was suitably aggrieved, and therefore the wedding planners hadn't done what they ought to have done with the failure to return his deposit, and that his concerns about their experience, expertise, and capability of planning the wedding were well founded. So far, this is the information that has been revealed in relation to her family, which shows a fairly stable background. There doesn't seem to be any falling out between the siblings, no more than you would otherwise expect. And there doesn't appear to be any deep-seated or entrenched hostilities that have taken place. But of course, that could all just be part of the facade that's presented to the outside world. And what has really gone on with the family remains unheard of. Thus, some narcissistic indicators, as one would expect, but so far with an examination of the family, nothing particularly damning. Accordingly, in part 3, we'll move on to another aspect of Nicola Peltz's life to discover what that tells us about her. Join me there.